niggas just play. Come after me! I'm a man! I'm 40! Can't wait! Let's go!
Good morning and welcome. It is Coffee and Sports. It is the morning show powered by Sports Empire Network. Thank you so much for making us part of your morning routine, whether you are live on Facebook right now, maybe you're live over on YouTube, maybe you're watching us on Roku TV. Thank you to Northeastern. We appreciate that. I am Chris, and of course, that is Mo. Mo, how are you this morning, sir?
I'm hanging in there, doing well on a hump day, just hanging out with my partner, talking sports.
Mo, it's the day of love, my guy. It's the day of love. Valentine's Day. Come on now.
Yes,
and
sir.
On this Valentine's Day, post Super Bowl, I wanted to start the conversation this morning with not necessarily acceptance, but understanding past mistakes and trying not to repeat those past mistakes when you're given a second opportunity. And what I'm referring to is Patrick Mahomes, and it's mostly Patrick Mahomes. We can say Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs, but let's keep it on Patrick Mahomes. And Mo, here is the route that I want to take. We all sat through Tom Brady. We all went through what Tom Brady accomplished in New England. And for the most part, I think it's fair that most people simply didn't appreciate it. And sure, some came around towards the end when he left New England and he won another championship with another team that wasn't Bill Belichick, that wasn't the New England Patriots. But for the most part, and I get it, Tom Brady wasn't a part of your team, especially if you were a team in the AFC East. He beat the crap out of you twice a year on a regular basis. You could just pencil in those losses. I understand. But now we have Patrick Mahomes. And if Patrick Mahomes were to continue on his current trajectory, and Mo, let's be honest, what reason do we have to believe that he wouldn't? I mean, after all, look what's happened the past two seasons, right? They don't win the Super Bowl. They trade Tyreek Hill, at which point the narrative is, well, how is he going to lose his biggest weapon? Plus, they have 7 or 8 rookies on the defensive side of the football. This is the year. This is the year that they're not going back to the AFC Championship game. Super Bowl's not going to go through the Chiefs. But it did, and they went back there, and they won. Well, then this year, Mo, this year was the year to beat Patrick Mahomes, right? Travis Kelce is getting older. He's talking retirement. They have no wide receivers on that team that can do anything consistently. They looked like a sham of their offense for most of the season. Struggled to score 24 points, 27 points consistently throughout the year. We're going to have to go on the playoffs, on the road in the playoffs for the first time ever, Mo. This was the year to stop Patrick Mahomes from going to the AFC title game. This was the year that it wasn't the Chiefs to win, but yet it was. So, Mo, we've seen him overcome issues on the defensive side of the ball. We've seen him overcome issues on the offensive side of the ball. Coaching is never going to be an issue for him as long as he is Andy Reid, and I think that's an important part of this recipe because when you have great coaching, you can overcome things. When you are a great player like Patrick Mahomes, an elite player, you can overcome things. And we would be foolish to believe that the Chiefs are going to continue to have the holes on the offensive side of the football that they had this year. Even if they're slightly better on offense next year, could we really have a legitimate argument as to why they're not going to go back to the AFC title game? Not really, unless something plays out in the season that we don't foresee. So, Mo, with things setting up the way they are, this is a chance for fans. You don't have to like Patrick Mahomes. You don't have to root for Patrick Mahomes. But if he truly is on this journey to greatness that he appears to be, I do implore everyone to at least respect what he is doing, because there are not many opportunities in the life of a sports fan to see this kind of greatness. And sure, you can hate it and you can be miserable the entire way. You can say the game is rigged. You can talk about Taylor Swift. You can talk about the NFL. You can talk about the officials. You can go any which way you want with it. And if that's what your prerogative is, that's fine. But Mo, growing up with Tom Brady and being a younger sports fan and hating Tom Brady, later on in my sports fandom, I started to respect Tom Brady. And I wish I had just done it a little bit sooner, because maybe I could have been more a part of the greatness that was Tom Brady, as opposed to just looking at the highlights and looking back at his career like we are now. When I'm sitting here as a sports fan saying, I was there. I was there. He's in my division. I was there the entire time. But I didn't care. I was too focused on hating Tom Brady. I was too focused on I'm a fan of whoever beats the Patriots. The Dolphins out of it. Who are the Pats playing this week? That's who I'm a fan of. That's where my focus was for so long of Tom Brady's great run. So I think Patrick Mahomes doing what he has done so far, 6 straight AFC championship games. He has 3 Super Bowls. He has 4 appearances. He's clearly setting himself up for a second half of his run in the NFL, which, let's say he's in there for 15 or 16 years. He's getting close to the halfway mark. He's setting himself up to be in the conversation with Brady, to surpass Brady at some point. And I would hope that we get to the point where fans can look at it and say, God damn it, I wish it was my team. I hate that it wasn't my team. But man, he really is great. That's where I am this morning, Mo.
He really is great. It's funny because I'm always talking about how big a fan I am of Dan Marino. And obviously one of the great players. He didn't end up winning his Super Bowl, but he was so great that we still have Dan Marino as a top 5 quarterback all time without a Super Bowl. He's probably the only guy that can pull that off in the history of the game. But I thought to myself, as you were speaking, I was like, would I love Dan Marino as much if he was beating the hell out of the Niners year after year?
Probably not.
Probably not, but I would have still acknowledged, like, God damn, that Marino's good. He's, you know what I mean? Like, you can give begrudging respect. I can acknowledge how great they were. I remember, look, when Brady was making his run early, I was with you. I was like, I mean, I don't know what everybody's talking about. He's okay.
Right,
he's pretty
right.
good. He's pretty good, but I mean, it's not him. He's all right. And you started to appreciate it. I feel like I started appreciating him more when he was on the other side of 30. Do you know what I mean? Like you can justify whatever you want if you want to hate on somebody and go, well, the team's carrying him. They've got a great defense. But time after time, this guy's making 4th quarter drives. And he's making those critical throws. And he's doing that with not an all-time receiver, with not like an offense that you would look at. I'm talking about name recognition and go, they're just loaded. That really wasn't the case. Not overall. I acknowledge. The funny thing is, though, the beginning of the run, because to me, the beginning of the run, and I don't know if it was for you, but the beginning of the run was the Tuck game.
Mm-hmm.
And mind you, this is early on when he was more of a game manager. But I remember the Tuck game, and I wasn't a Raiders fan, but as it happened, I was one of the first people who was like, rigged.
Right.
That's rigged. I was like, that's a fumble, man. You know what a fumble looked like. That's a fumble. But as they went on and the championships piled up, the numbers piled up, and the accolades piled up, you acknowledge how great he was. You did. And the guy got into his late 30s, heading into his 40s, and he was spinning the ball better than anybody in football. And what I said before, I think it was a couple of weeks ago on this show, is when we talk about the greatest quarterbacks of all time, yes, Peyton was a machine. He could dissect a play, a defense, a coverage better than most coaches. But what separated Brady from Peyton was Brady was instinctively a better football player. He just had natural instincts. Peyton was in his books. He was studying. And it's not that Brady didn't put in the work, but I just think instinctively he had a thing that Peyton didn't really have, and that was the separation of the two players. And I'm watching Patrick Mahomes now, And it's a fear factor. It's a fear factor of, oh my God, if we don't get a 14-point lead, if we don't get some space between us and this guy, he's going to get the ball with time on the clock and we're going to lose. I heard somebody say this morning, as soon as the Niners kick the field goal, game over. I'm a Niner fan. As we decided to kick the field goal, I put my head down and said, we lost. We lost. And it stung because I was like, we lost. It was over. And I wasn't thinking they're going to tie it up and extend it out and beat us. I was thinking this guy's going to drive them down the field and we've lost. And he delivered on that. So I'm not going to be one of those guys that get on the boat late. I've been on the boat early, but I'm staying on the boat and acknowledging what I'm seeing and experiencing it and enjoying it. And I'm going to be one of those people to go like, he's on a trajectory right now, Chris, where no, he's not the GOAT, but given time, because of this incredible start, the man isn't even 30 yet. He's not 30 yet. And if this was the year they were supposed to lose, they're going on the road. This is probably the worst offensive team that he's taken to the Super Bowl. And he found a way to beat you. And look, I think people, they do sleep on, this was a defensive team with a great quarterback that could manage the game. Now, he wasn't a game manager, but he knew what his team was firepower-wise and said, I'm going to beat you by owning the clock and trusting my defense. And he did that. The scary part is you don't think they're going to put some more talent out there this coming offseason? They're going to be better next year. You're right, Chris. There's no reason to not think that they won't go back to back to back. The only thing that stands in their way, honestly, is health. You can't predict injuries or things of that nature. But if they're whole, I don't see anybody in the AFC right now today standing in their way.
So think about this. So Patrick Mahomes is 28 years old. He's going into his year 29 season next year. Let's say over the next 3 seasons, he wins 1. So that would put him at 4 Super Bowls, entering his year 32 season. So 29, 30, 31. Yeah. So 4 Super Bowls as he's 31 years old. He's entering his year 32 season. We don't know how long Patrick Mahomes is going to play. I'm not going to sit here and say he's going to play till he's 44 or 45 years old because let's be honest, Mo, that doesn't happen. Okay. But you never know. If he gets 4 before he's 32 and you just go with, okay, well, if he can get same thing, next 3 years, he can get 1 more. Well, now you're at 5 and he's not 35 yet. Like that's almost because they're not going to, I believe in his greatness. And I believe they're going to continue to find success. But you have to realize that I don't know if they're going to keep it up at this level, right? Like, this is ridiculous. 6 straight AFC championship games, the number of Super Bowl appearances. You have to figure with the amount of parity in the NFL, and not just the NFL. Look at the AFC. I mean, he has good quarterbacks that are playing in his conference, right? So you're looking at a Joe Burrow. You're looking at a Josh Allen, as much as I hate to say it. You're looking at what is Herbert going to do with Harbaugh, right? You're looking at, Lamar Jackson, to say what you want about his postseason success, he's still a really good regular season quarterback.
No doubt.
So they're going to be hanging around. You're looking at Tua in Miami. You're looking at all these offenses and whatnot that are going to potentially be hurdles. And as we see in the NFL, look what the Lions did this year. What are you more confident in? The Chiefs going back to the AFC title game next year or the Lions replicating their season? You're probably more confident in the Chiefs, but that just shows you that you have these seasons where teams pop and they could, sure, Lions could easily come back and do exactly what they did this season. But if they didn't, you wouldn't be shocked. So you look at that and you're like, we have this constant turnover in the playoffs. Every year you average, I believe, 6 to 7 new playoff teams. So in a world where that exists, he's gone to 6 straight AFC championship games. So you would imagine at some point that consistency is going to fade a little bit. Otherwise, that would just be completely ridiculous. So, Mo, if you're looking at, let's say he goes 1 for 3 for the next 6 years, that's 5 going into his mid-30s. At that point, I think to what you said, it becomes more a question of health and longevity. At that point, how long is he going to play? Because if he still is playing at, and as you get older, some of those skills deteriorate, right? So, there's a lot of questions when it comes to, can he get to 7? How long is it going to take him to get to 7? I don't think it's going to stay at this pace. And that's not a knock on the Chiefs. That's not a knock on Patrick Mahomes.
It won't. Remember, there's another factor we're not factoring in. It's the Andy Reid factor. Because there will be another coach on the second side of his career. And what will that look like? What will their relationship be like? It doesn't change that Patrick will be great, but it will matter. It will impact him. So he's going to have to, whoever comes in there, he's got to have a similar relation. Now, it doesn't have to be the same, but they have to bond somewhat the same way he and Reid did, because that is going to impact them. The way Reid calls plays, the way he designed plays, the scheme, all of that will be different. I don't think they're just going to implant like a clone and go pretty much just run what Andy did, because I don't think it plays out that way. So I think the Reid factor is big as well. As how much longer are they together? A year, 2 years? Like I do think that impacts things. Like the funny thing is, maybe you had the solution already. Maybe you should have kept Bieniemy. Just saying.
Well, let's pivot to some NBA stuff. We got Gene coming on a little bit later to talk NFL. But before we get there, we got a couple of NBA nuggets to look at. We talked a little bit about the Warriors yesterday, Mo. They've won 7 out of 8. They got a tough one on their schedule tonight, I believe. But a couple of Warriors nuggets. The first one being in regards to Klay Thompson. Klay Thompson has come out and said that he is open to a reduced role with the Warriors if that means he's able to resign with them. So Klay is clearly thinking about his future. He's clearly thinking about what is his next step. And it looks like he wants to remain with the Warriors. And now he's saying all the right things that would make the Warriors front office want to keep him. So if he's talking about a diminished role, that means he's probably talking about a little less money. That means there's less headaches. If you bring Klay back, you don't have to navigate those choppy waters of he's declining, he's not what he was. So if he's just putting all that on the table and he's kind of acknowledging, I know I'm not what I am, I'll play less minutes, I'll do whatever I need, a little bit less money. Mo, do you see that being what ultimately happens? Klay re-signs with Golden State.
I do. Look, the fact that he could come to the realization that he's not what he was, that's a difficult thing for any player. And I said this before. I think Klay Thompson, there's a role for him with Golden State, that he can still impact games, that he can still help them. It's just not the role that he had held for the previous decade. So I do see him coming back, and I think they want to meet him halfway. I think the only real issue was they realized he is somewhat of a declining player. We can't give you a super max because of what you did for us in the past. We've got to pay you according to what you are right now, projecting forward for the next, let's say, 2 or 3 years. So I think it's a great possibility that Klay does return to the Warriors, and knowing where he is at in his career, I think that's so key, because you can still have a lesser role but still impact games. So good for Klay, good for the Warriors. I think they do work things out.
We also heard that the Warriors were heavily interested in bringing Caruso on board via trade, but nothing came to fruition on that end. Would Caruso have been a good fit with the Warriors?
He would have been a great fit. He's a great point of attack defender. Not to mention, he's terrific off the ball. A lot of people don't talk about defense off the ball, but Caruso's the kind of guy that he will make you work to get your catches. He gets guys off their spots. He's tenacious, can guard 3 different positions. So he would have been a great fit for them. But I can see why the Bulls held on to him, because if William were here, he would know that his Bulls are still trying to make a playoff run. They're a play-in team right now. They're trying to move up to the 6th seed. I don't think they're going to get there, but Caruso has that kind of value.
Mo, stop the presses. The Phoenix Suns have signed Thad Young.
I only laugh because I think somebody mentioned Thad Young last week, and I'll be honest, like I said, I was like, still in the league? Wow. And I heard KD mention him last night after the game, and he was excited, like, we're going to get Thad, and we're going to get a little bit deeper. And I was like, all of a sudden Thad Young is going to have a huge role again. And that's cool if it works out that way. I don't think it's a stop the presses move. I still think that Phoenix is an undersized team. I still think that Phoenix doesn't defend well enough to go on a deep playoff run. They're going to be fun to watch, and they're going to be a tough out. But I don't think Thad Young moves the needle.
It also came out yesterday, Kyle Kuzma making some headlines when he said that he did not want to go to the Mavericks. He picked the Wizards over the Mavs because he believes that they can build something in Washington. So let's take a step back and let's kind of look at, because obviously people are going to go look at standings right away and then be like, oh my God, the Mavs are here, the Wizards are here. Why would you not want to go somewhere where clearly you're going to be in the... Hang on. Let's look 3 years down the road here, Mo. Is there a way? Is he seeing something in Washington where a couple of seasons from now, you could be looking at the Wizards as a serious playoff team? Now, obviously, you know, Washington has that other guy who might be the biggest waste of money in the NBA right now in Jordan Poole.
This is true.
So they got to figure something out with Mr. Poole. But what is happening in Washington where Kuzma is thinking there's something here we can build, or is nothing happening in Washington and he just didn't want to go to Dallas?
Nothing's happening in Washington and he just didn't want to go to Dallas. On the bad Wizards team, he's a number one option. On the Mavs team, he's a third or fourth option. He didn't want to go to Dallas. Now, if it's all about winning, he would have had no problem at all. But he would have been a lesser player in a smaller role. Now, it would have been an important role, but he didn't want to go to Dallas. And maybe it's what people mumble about. He didn't want to play with Luka. A lot of guys don't. It's not an easy thing to do. But he's not seeing anything. Look at that Wizards roster top to bottom. What he's seeing is a lot more losing. He'll put up numbers, but he's seeing a lot more losing, a few more trips to the lottery. That's what he's seeing.
And Mo, can you kill a guy for that? I know that we put such an emphasis on winning, whether it be basketball or baseball or football. And you see it a lot later in careers of these athletes, especially in basketball. Look at Dame, for example. He stuck around Portland for a while. He wanted to do it in Portland. Didn't happen in Portland. And eventually he kind of gave in to, I really do want to win a ring. I guess I have to go move if that's going to be the case.
Right.
Can you kill a guy for looking at his situation and being like, yeah, I could win more games over there? And maybe he doesn't see Dallas as a championship team. Maybe he sees Dallas as a playoff team. And in his mind, him going to Dallas, they're still not winning a title. So can you kill a guy for being like, I would rather be the guy. I would rather be the focus of the team. I would rather be one of the top two players on the team. I would rather be the guy night in and night out. It goes through me. I'm getting numbers. When someone says Washington Wizards and they start naming off players, I'm the first or second player they name off. I would rather be that guy than maybe go to Dallas and we're a fourth or a fifth or a sixth seed in the playoffs. Maybe we win a first round series and then we're bounced. Is there anything wrong with that?
If you truly believe that you're building something in Washington and you want to be part of that, I'm fine with that. Look, Dame made a brand for a decade off of that until he didn't make the brand, right? Until he gave up on the brand. His whole brand was, I'll never team up with another star. I'll never leave Portland. I'm going to be committed to winning here. And then he realized, he got honest and goes, yeah, I'm not winning nothing here. I think if Kuzma truly believes that, that's one thing. If to go with what you said, where he goes, I just want to be the best player on the team. I want to be the guy, as opposed to being on the Mavs, who are a really good team, but they're not going to win a title. I guess I have a problem with it because it sounds like you're content with losing. And I'm not saying the Mavs are a title contender, but they're in it. Anybody can have a shot. I want to remind you, Luka did take them to a conference finals. How do I know? With injuries and the way things, what if somebody gets upset? What if someone takes out the Nuggets that we don't see happening? And it opens up everything. Flukish things happens in sports all the time, but for you to just go like, yeah, I'd rather stay here because, and I get it. He's living even larger because Poole was actually supposed to be the number one option. But Poole is just basically mentally caved in. He's done. And so Kuzma is living his best life statistically. I'm not sure what that says for you in terms of being a competitor, because it sounds more like I'm just content where I'm at because I'm the guy. If I'm a season ticket holder, that doesn't really send a good message to me. Like, you got to give me more than that. Even if you don't believe it, sell me on the fact that you think we're building something here and you want to be a part of that, as opposed to, hey, here I average over 20 points a game. If I go play with the Mavs, that'll be like 14 or 15 a game. I'm not doing that. Like, to me, that's the difference.
Mo, as we head into All-Star Weekend for the NBA and we take a look at where things currently are in the standings, it's getting a little distant over in the Eastern Conference. The Celtics have won 5 in a row. The Cavs and Bucks are coming off losses. The Knicks have lost 3 in a row. 6-game lead for the Celtics in the East. As we look forward to the second half of the NBA season, which team has the best chance to chase down the Celtics for the top seed in the East? Or do you think it's pretty much locked up?
I think the Celtics are going to hold on to the top seed. I think Milwaukee and New York are battling for 2. And look, if not for the Embiid injury, Philly would be battling for the second spot. But right now, Philly's kind of going back and forth. They're descending. And the real question is, can Tyrese Maxey keep them afloat long enough for when Embiid gets back that they're not in the play-in by the time he gets back? I don't know the answer to that right now, because they're kind of up and down. And I do think the Pat Beverly loss, it was kind of it's a tough loss for them. It does, because they're kind of branded on defense and they're not as good defensively as a team. I don't think anybody's going to catch the Celtics because they're the most consistent team in the East and they've got the best starting 5 in the East. So right now, I think it's theirs to lose, but I think the Celtics are going to cruise to the number 1 seed and everybody else is fighting for second.
And then over in the West, it was so close in the West a week and a half ago that you lose a couple in a row, you win a couple in a row, you create some distance. Minnesota's on top. They've won 3 in a row. Thunder's a game behind them. And then the Clippers and the Nuggets, the Clippers are coming off a loss. Nuggets have lost 2 in a row. They're both 2 games back. Obviously, we talked about this before, Mo. There was such a huge difference between being the 1 seed and the 4 seed. And you have all 4 of these teams basically under one blanket right now. We've talked a couple weeks ago, and the consensus here on Wednesday with Will was that Minnesota isn't going to be there at the top of that conference when the season comes to an end. They're definitely going to be there as we head into the All-Star break. If you had to take one of those 4 teams, who is going to be the number 1 seed coming out of the West as we prepare for the second half of the NBA season? Wolves, Thunder, Clip, or Nuggets?
I think it's going to be between the Nuggets and the Wolves. I actually disagree with Will. Look, I don't know what the Timberwolves are going to look like in the postseason, but their style of play, it's kind of built for the playoffs. They're playing playoff style basketball in the regular season. The way they're defending, the way they're getting up into people, the way when guys cut, they're rerouting guys by contact, they're being physical. I think the Timberwolves actually are going to sustain what they're doing. I don't know if they'll be number 1, but at worst, they'll be the 2nd seed in the West. I think the Nuggets will come on late. They really haven't been whole. They've got guys coming in and out the roster, but I think once they're whole, I think the Nuggets are going to be the number 1 seed when it's all said and done.
All right, well, let's take a quick break. When we get back, we're going to have Gene, the NFL genius from Wire to Wire, on the show. We got some things in the NFL to break down, all of that and more on the other side of the break. Don't go anywhere. It's Coffee and Sports. It's the morning show here on Sports Empire Network. Welcome back. It is Coffee and Sports. It is the morning show. Gene, we had to get merch. We saw that you had merch, so we got merch. We're merch buddies now.
I loved it. I loved it. Honestly, I think I'm gonna get a mug. I have a Sports Empire Network mug. I need a Coffee and Sports mug. There's no better place to put coffee than a Coffee and Sports mug.
Just saying. It almost writes itself. Gene, we're happy to have you here. Let's jump right into it. So many narratives coming out of the Super Bowl, and then those narratives were added on to following the Super Bowl with some of the post-game comments. And initially when this came out, and I'm talking about the fact that the players did not know the overtime rules, there was a handful of 49ers players who were very honest in that they didn't know there was a rule change. And that they were different from regular season overtime rules. And then, Chiefs fans, let's not puff our chests too large. The guy who caught the winning touchdown didn't know the game was over. Hardman was not aware that he just won the Super Bowl. He thought he scored a touchdown and there was more game to play. So he didn't quite know the rules either. Now, this took a big shift yesterday morning on all of the morning shows across the media waves. It was, that's ridiculous that players don't know this. This is a sham. Like, you're an NFL player. Know the rules of the sport you play. By the evening, Gene, it had shifted to, listen, it's the coach's job to know the rules. It's the player's job to go out and tackle, make catches, don't fumble the football, know the plays. As long as the coach knows what's going on, it doesn't matter if your third wide receiver or your defensive tackle knows the overtime rules, because they're not paid to do that. They are paid to do things on the field. They are paid to make plays. If your coach didn't know the rules, different story. But if you have 4 or 5 players, or even if half the team doesn't know the rules, as long as the coaches know what's going on and they're scheming accordingly, it is what it is. So we saw the full gambit yesterday, Gene. So as we enter this morning, I'm going to ask you, is it a big deal that the players did not know the overtime rules in the Super Bowl?
Yes, it's a very big deal. And it's a lot of reasons it's a big deal. So can you imagine how deflated you would be if the 49ers scored a touchdown on the opening drive and they scored a touchdown? They all start celebrating like they won the Super Bowl. They thought it was over. They thought it was the regular season rules. And they're like, no, you got to go play defense versus Patrick Mahomes now. Like, no, that matters, right? And I'm actually glad Mecole Hardman didn't know the rules. Could you imagine, like, if he did know the rules and did know the game was over and knew that catch was for the Super Bowl? I don't know. The pressure might have dropped the football.
That's true.
I don't know, right? So, but yes, you should know what the rules are of the game that you're playing. I think it's embarrassing how, and honestly, when you hear the press conferences afterwards, I think it's really telling the difference between a good coach and a great coach. Difference between Kyle Shanahan and Andy Reid. Andy Reid talked to them about practicing, about what was going to happen. Like, the Andy Reid players thought the game was going to continue, and that's fine. I'm okay with that. You thinking the game's longer, whereas the 49ers players thought, oh, if we score, the game's over. Like, we thought we were going to win the game. That's why we took the ball first. That mattered, right? And if you're going to have Patrick Mahomes and give him 4 downs all the way downfield, there's zero reason that you shouldn't have deferred that kickoff. You win that coin toss, it's a blessing. Because on 4th and 1 from their own 32-yard line, who's to say they go for it?
Sure.
If the game's tied. Because if they don't get it, the 49ers just walk on the field, kick a field goal, game's over. So, like, that matters, right? And, you're going to give Patrick Mahomes 4 downs to go down the field. Most times he's going to go down the field and score. That's just my opinion.
And then 49ers players later in the afternoon yesterday and this morning walked back some of their comments. Juszczyk in particular, he was very, very transparent after the Super Bowl that he didn't know the rules. He didn't know there was a rule change. He thought it was the same as the regular season. And then he walked those comments back and said that, any opportunity people can get to bleep all over my head coach, that's what they're going to do. Of course, we were prepared for the game. Of course, we knew what was going on. Mo, as a Niner fan, I mean, some things are just better left unsaid. We know you weren't lying when you said you didn't know the rules. At least what Kyle Shanahan said post-game sounded good. We know that part of it was BS. but at least it sounded good on the surface of, well, we wanted the ball third. Okay, well, your play calling didn't say you want the ball third, but all right, sure, it sounds good on paper, Kyle. But then when players start walking it back in an effort to defend their head coach, Mo, come on.
And this is the frustrating part for me as a 49ers fan. Because this is your team. You ride with your team no matter what. If you grew up with them, Gene knows what I'm talking about. But these guys, this particular group, this core, they talk too much. They've always talked too much. They always have. They've had success. I understand that they've had a lot of regular season success. They've won some playoffs. This core, and I'm talking about the core group, they've been to multiple Super Bowls, but you've lost multiple Super Bowls, and they still keep talking. And at some point, you're like, know when to just shut up. You lost the game. Just know when to shut up. When he first admitted that he didn't know the rules, just ride with that. That was honesty. I can appreciate that. Be honest about it. And I think that he wanted to walk it back because he was like, oh, now they're going to go and say, coach didn't have us prepared. He didn't have you prepared. If you didn't know, then they didn't have you prepared. This team, this is my team, but they're the most annoying team in football in terms of how much they run their mouths.
I completely agree with Mo. And I don't mean to, I think, and nothing again. You know what's funny? We were going through this on Sideline to Sideline last Thursday night, and there's a lot of guys, and even Sunday Morning Drive, there's a lot of guys on that 49ers team I love. And it's like, it's weird why I hate them so much. I always like question, why do I hate the team so much? It's really only a pinpoint 5 or 6 people that are on that football team that just yap. Whereas, like, I love Fred Warner, man. I love that player. Christian McCaffrey. Listen, if he was on my team, I would love me some Trent Williams. But those aren't the guys that you hear in the press conference afterwards. Yap. I agree with Mo 100%. I think they have a really good core, but I think they talk a lot.
Gene, one of the interesting conversations that was presented on a few different shows yesterday was the comparison between Brock Purdy and Jimmy Garoppolo. This comparison comes from the fact that 27 starts into their careers, they have pretty much identical numbers. They're 21-6. That's their starting record, regular season and postseason. And then if you look at their 2 Super Bowl appearances, they both had 10-point leads in the Super Bowl. They both end up losing to Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs. And the argument was Garoppolo gets killed because he didn't do enough. He wasn't enough. He didn't make enough plays. And then you look at Purdy, and he's not getting enough praise. He should be in the MVP conversation. And Gene, if you break down both of those games, they both missed throws in those. They both missed key throws in those games. Garoppolo missed a wide open 60-yard touchdown pass. Purdy missed a couple of wide open passes. One would have been a touchdown. One would have been a first down late in the game. So it's interesting. I'm curious about your take on it from, and I'm going to get Mo's too as a 49er fan, but you're looking at just 27 games in. They both led their team to a Super Bowl only 4 years apart. And the narrative between these two quarterbacks is completely opposite. Garoppolo was, though, we need to get better at quarterback. He's not doing enough for us. And Purdy is, give the damn guy more respect. You see Niners fans coming out of the Super Bowl, Gene. Purdy played great. Purdy wasn't the reason we lost. He did everything we needed him to do. Gene, why is the narrative so different for 2 players in 2 situations where it's very, very much the same?
Because Garoppolo was in his 6th year and Purdy's in his 2nd. It's a totally different thing. When you have 3 years studying behind Tom Brady, playing for Bill Belichick, and then you have 2 years with the franchise already before you make that playoff run, that was Garoppolo's 3rd year with San Francisco when they made that run to the Super Bowl. This is Purdy's 1.5 year mark. And I'll tell you right now, if you're looking at growth and you want to look at it growth, Brock Purdy's growth from year 1 to year 2 is even higher than I expected. I'll never forget walking into this NFL season like, 49ers are going to crash and burn. Brock Purdy's not the guy. Sam Darnold's going to take over at quarterback. And then watching that Pittsburgh Steelers game and being like, oh, damn, I'm wrong. And like, I think it took me 2 days, right? That Tuesday, I put my detraction video out. It's like, I was wrong. This kid's grown. He's learned the offense. Like, I'm wrong. And to watch his growth throughout the year in just year 2, he's so far ahead of where everybody, number one, where anybody has placed him, but where even the 49ers expected him to be. So, yeah, I think, and also when you watch those 2 Super Bowls, it was totally different coached.
Mm-hmm.
Kyle Shanahan coached Jimmy Garoppolo scared.
Yep.
It was run, run, run. Like, I remember to get the ball back with a minute left in the first half, 10-10 game, 37-yard line. Run, run. All right, we'll try something on third down. Purdy was totally different. They allowed him. There was big third down and 2 from your own 43-yard line. Like, oh, you're going to give it to CMC. Nope, threw the ball. How about the throw he made to Kyle Juszczyk on the sideline on that third and 6 with pressure in his face? I watched that football game, and I left that football game exactly where I started that football game. Purdy's an 8-14 quarterback. That's where he's at, 8 through 14. Joe Burrow wins the football game. Kirk Cousins probably loses it. It's the truth of where you're at, right? And the 49ers are a very, very good football team. Kyle Shanahan coaches a great offense. But there's something to do with that second half when he has that 10-point lead where he just doesn't know what to do. It's like, I don't know what to do with my hands. You ever like see that? I don't know what to do with them. And I blame that Super Bowl way more on Kyle Shanahan. And honestly, if you really want to tell the truth, that Super Bowl was lost when Drake Greenlaw popped his Achilles. God. That broke my heart.
I said
because he was so excited. And before Drake Greenlaw popped his Achilles, Travis Kelce had 1 catch for 1 yard.
Yep.
Afterwards, 8 for 93. You realize how significant of a difference that key third down where Travis Kelce catches that 35-yard pass on a crosser. It's because Fred Warner's sticking him man to man.
Right.
You can't have that.
And he ran away from him.
So that's my 2 cents.
Mo, the theme of talking in the Bay Area continues with one of your star wide receivers, Brandon Aiyuk. He Instagrammed yesterday. He is currently in contract negotiations, and he wanted to put out there in a cryptic little Instagram message, not to forget who got you there. Obviously referring to his contributions to the 49ers and the success that they've had recently. Mo, again, and Gene made this point a little bit ago, there's a lot of talking from a lot of people in the Bay Area for not much of a reason. Is this what this team needs right now, less than a week removed, 3 days removed, 2 days removed from losing the Super Bowl? One of their star weapons on offense talking about, don't forget who got you there now. Don't forget.
It airs its head all the time with this team. And look, I understand he's going into negotiations and he wants his money. He's a very good football player. Nobody would deny that. And I don't want to say this in a mean way. I'm a fan of Brandon Aiyuk. He is their best wide receiver. And there's 2 different distinctions. Debo is a better football player. There's no denying that. Debo's the better football player. He's a better wide receiver. But he's not an elite wide receiver. He's a very good wide receiver. And he is replaceable. I know that sounds mean, but he's replaceable. I don't want to lose him because he's a good weapon in an offense that it varies with Kittle and Debo and CMC. You just lost the Super Bowl. To me, I know I'd be still mad about that. I'd still be down about. I would need a minute before I started thinking about cryptic text, but this is, I guess this is the era that we're in. Guys feel the need to go to social media to express their emotions and what they're going through. It's where we're at. I would rather him have just handled that internally. You are talking to your agent, and I'm sure you're going to talk to the 49ers brass about what your expectations are contract-wise. But again, sometimes it's a lot of things are better left unsaid or untext or unposted. It wasn't necessary. Everybody knows you're in your contract year. It is what it is.
Gene, how should he get the bag? Obviously, he wants the bag. We've seen receivers far less talented than Aiyuk get a good chunk of money. If you're the 49ers brass and you're looking at what you have lined up going into next season, you're kind of looking at your finances. Are you paying top dollar for Aiyuk? Are you giving him middle of the market money? How are you handling that situation?
I'm not paying top dollar for Brandon Aiyuk. There's too many more important pieces on that 49ers team. listen, Mo said it perfectly, right? He might be the best receiver on the team. He's not the best player that plays receiver on the team. Debo Samuel's more important. You watch what Juwan Jennings did in that game. You have draft capital, which you can draft a wide receiver. There's no way I'm giving this man the bag. The most important pieces on that football team, and I can go through them, aren't Brandon Aiyuk. And speaking of Brandon Aiyuk popping his mouth off, what is with family members of players popping their mouths off?
It's
Like,
a
you
thing.
realize how much you're hurting your brother by posting that on social media? And by the way, I don't know if you're going to plan on getting into this, or I didn't see if you got into it yesterday. He didn't even say the dumbest thing on the team. John Feliciano needs to be on a friggin' leash. That guy needs a muzzle. Like, it's unbelievable what they're saying after this football game. I'm floored. And look, we trashed Nick Sirianni in Philadelphia for the way he handled the season this year. But I will say this. After last year's Super Bowl, I give all the credit to that Eagles coaching staff for the way they handled things and the way each player came out after that game. Like, nope, we could have did more during that game. We're not going to. I wish it wasn't called or whatever. That's leadership. That's leadership. And I blame this all of it, every piece of it on Kyle Shanahan, because the culture in that locker room is based off of complaining or making excuses. And you've seen this back to last year. So like, they're like, oh, well, Purdy doesn't get hurt. Well, did Purdy get hurt like Greenlaw got hurt? Like, and it's a freak accident? No, he got hurt because you put a backup tight end on the third or fourth best edge rusher in football. That's why he got hurt. It's all from within, right? You have to blame within. And Brandon Aiyuk definitely shouldn't get the bag. Like, talk about receivers around the NFL. He's not top 30. No doubt in my mind, he's not top 30. And I'll tell you right now, Marvin Harrison Jr. is worth way more money, and he's not played a snap in the NFL.
Gene, coming out of Philly, there's some talk about Hassan Reddick. His name hits the rumor market as far as trades are concerned. He's come out and said he did not request a trade. He wants it to be known that he wants to be in Philly, but he also understands the NFL is a business, and he has no control over if they decide to trade him. So he is just going to sit back and wait to see whatever happens next, and he'll deal with it as it comes. As a fan of the Eagles, what should happen next? Should they move him? What is your take with Reddick in Philadelphia moving forward?
Well, I'm so glad you asked me this question because I really have my finger on the pulse in the situation, like really well. Like, I know a couple beat reporters and reporters for the Eagles, and I know where the report came from. The report actually came from Hassan Reddick's agent. Hassan Reddick was like massively underpaid the last 2 years in Philadelphia for the production that he's put out. So he wants an extension. He's not playing this year without an extension or a new contract with Philadelphia. So what Philadelphia said was, listen, he can seek a trade, find out what his value is, bring that value back to us, and we'll see if we can pay that. That's all that. It's all pandering. Philadelphia wants to keep Hassan Reddick, but they have to keep him for the right price. They paid their quarterback.
Right.
Hassan Reddick wants a contract that he most rightfully deserves, but you essentially have to weigh, well, you drafted Nolan Smith 30th last year, plays the same position, does the exact same thing. He's not as good as Hassan Reddick, but do you have your piece? Could you move Hassan Reddick for a second-round draft pick, get a little bit more capital, get a little bit younger? You could. If I'm the Philadelphia Eagles, I'm moving Hassan Reddick. I don't want to, but unless he's taking a severe hometown discount, which I don't think he will, even though he loves the city and he's from the area, you move him, you get a second-round draft pick for him, and you allow him to get paid. That's the best thing you can do for him.
Gene, last thing I want to touch on you with, and again, we keep circling back here. It's the yapping of the 49ers. Obviously, and we all know football. On any given play, there's holding in the NFL, right? Like any given play, any given moment, any given game, if you go back and you watch the film, you can probably be like, oh, that was holding. But of course, things get magnified in bigger games and Super Bowls, and they get magnified especially when leading into the Super Bowl. You have your two big stars on defense, if you're the 49ers, being asked point blank, what do you think of these two players in the Chiefs? and then being like, they get away with a lot of holding. We watched the tape, and they've held a lot this season, and it hasn't been called. Then you go to the Super Bowl, and you're like, well, did they hold in the Super Bowl and it wasn't called? Oh, there's like 5 plays in the Super Bowl where they kind of held. Well, they didn't kind of. They did, and it wasn't called. Gene, is this more of an issue because it was voiced before the Super Bowl and then it actually happened? Is this not an issue at all? Because it literally happens every game. You can look back and be like, there is 5 missed holding calls. There's holding in every play. It is what it is. I think it gets a little more attention because you literally have the 2 best players in the Niners defense being like, we know who they are. They're not very good, and they hold all the time and get away with it. And then you look at the tape, and they kind of held all the time and got away with it. What is your take on that?
I think this is never going to stop in the NFL because of social media, because of TikTok videos and reels in which you can clip a certain play and say there was holding here, a legal man downfield here. It's never going to stop, right? There's holding on every play in football. It just is. And yeah, were there some holds that weren't called? Sure. I watched that game with clear eyes with a lot of money on the San Francisco 49ers. And I didn't walk away from that football game saying I got hosed. And I think that anybody that watched that game at home didn't say, oh, this game was rigged. It was one-sided. Look, I hate using last year's Super Bowl as a barometer. There was one hold called in that entire football game. And it was on James Bradbury on that poll. That was the only hold called in the entire football game. That's where I'm going to be like, okay, well, you didn't call it all game, and you called that as your only hold. I watched that Super Bowl with money on San Francisco, picking San Francisco, going, better team won today. Sucks that, I had a lot of money. I was standing to win a lot of money. San Francisco wins that football game. And I didn't look at it and say, oh, okay, well, they got hosed. There's holding everywhere. And guys, if you don't think that the Chiefs, because they won, couldn't put videos together and say, look at this play, look at this play, look at this play, because it happens all the time. I actually made a TikTok responding to a Ravens fan talking about a legal man downfield. And he was wrong. Like, the ball was thrown, the guy was within 1 yard line of scrimmage. It's like, you guys just watch and go nitpick here, and there, and that's got to stop in the NFL. It's got it. And I think the only way for it to stop is for it to be so much less betting. That was the most gambled on game in history.
No doubt.
Well, and Gene, with the illegal man downfield, I think part of that issue is fans don't understand the actual rule.
Yep.
Like, they just don't understand where the moment is and exactly how they don't get it. Because I've seen so many of those, to your point, where like, he's illegally downfield. No, he's not. You need to understand what's happening.
People don't know that, Chris, people don't know that you can be engaged with a blocker 3 yards downfield, and it's not a legal man downfield.
Correct.
It's not being engaged with a blocker more than 1 yard past the line of scrimmage before the ball is thrown. Like, those 3 things all have to happen. And for a referee to be like, is he there? Is he there? Is the ball thrown? Is the ball thrown? Like, stop it. It's got to be egregious for them to call it.
Exactly. 100%. Gene, always a pleasure to have you here.
Appreciate you,
Wednesday.
Gene.
What's going on with Wire to Wire this evening?
We got UFC tonight. We're going to talk about a stacked card. Volk's back. We're going to break down. I love this. The NBA All-Star Weekend. We're going to break down some NBA All-Star, like the rookie-sophomore game. We'll spend more time on the Rising Stars game with the 4 than we'll spend on the All-Star game, because those 4 teams and like picking who's going to win is way more fun than what the All-Star game has become.
I agree.
But I'm looking forward to seeing a superstar in the dunk competition. How about that? And Steph Curry versus Sabrina Ionnescu.
Yes.
That's going to be so much fun to watch. So we're going to talk about all that tonight on Wire to Wire, and looking forward to seeing you guys in chat.
I'm sure both of you know, maybe some of our listeners do not. Total badass move by Sabrina to say, no, I don't want the women's line. I'll take the men's line. I have that range. I shoot from there anyways. So I'll be shooting from the same 3-point distance as Steph Curry is.
I didn't know that you did that.
Yeah, same distance. Yep, she wanted it, Gene. She goes, I don't need the women's line. She goes, I shoot from distance anyways. I'm good.
Listen, from the women's line with the women's ball, I think she wins. from the men's line, even with the women's ball, I think she gets destroyed.
We'll see. We will see what happens. Gene, one last thought. You mentioned UFC. Trending comments from the WWE World Heavyweight Champion Seth freaking Rollins this past weekend. He was asked about UFC stars jumping to WWE because of the new merger, and he was very adamant that he doesn't think they could. He said nothing against them. He goes, just like I don't think I can go over there and do UFC. He goes, I'd probably get knocked out in 2 seconds flat. He goes, I'd last longer than CM Punk did, but I think I would get knocked out in 2 seconds flat. He goes, I don't think they have the stamina to come over and do what we do 360 days a year, night in, night out. He goes, it's a lot different when you only fight 2 fights a year. He goes, some of them are crazy and do 3 fights a year. He goes, but these are just completely different things. He goes, it's not a knock on them. He goes, ask Ronda Rousey. The stamina thing is real. She struggled with it. For that reason, I don't think you're going to see it. What are your thoughts? 30 seconds, sir.
I love Seth friggin' Rollins. I mean,
I know you do. I know.
I really do. And I think that he's what a WWE professional should be. He fights night in and night out. He's even when he's hurt, he's still there. I think that UFC fighters can do that. To act like they wouldn't have the cardio or the stamina to do that, I think that's absurd. But I do think that he wants to make sure he's overplaying his profession,
right,
and not allowing people to under appreciate what he does.
Yeah. Right. So. Agreed.
All right, Gene. We'll be in the chats tonight, wire to
For
wire.
sure.
We'll see you this evening, sir.
Thank you, guys. Take care.
Have a good one.
Always a pleasure having Gene here.
No
Gene's
doubt.
on the show every Wednesday. Make sure you're here, Coffee and Sports, every Wednesday, checking out Gene. But Mo, before we get out of here, a couple of quarterback questions I'm going to throw at you. I'm just going to name 5 quarterbacks. I want you to first team that comes to mind as to where you think they're going to be playing next season. You ready?
I'll give it a shot.
All right, here we go. First one up, Baker Mayfield.
Tampa,
right?
I think I think that the Bucs are smart. I think they've got their guy.
I promise you that's going to be the easiest one I give you.
Oh.
Next up is Justin Fields.
Ooh. Look, you and I think that the smart move would be to retain Justin Fields. But my gut instinct is I don't know where he's going to be playing, but it won't be in Chicago.
Russell Wilson.
That's another one. It's funny you're saying where I think he's going to go. Well, I know where he ain't going to be. He ain't going to be in Denver.
I think he's going to be a Patriot.
I was going to say Patriots or Steelers, but yeah, I like Patriots. Okay.
And the Steelers are interested in Justin Fields. The Falcons rumors are they're interested in Justin Fields. So if Justin Fields is moved, Pittsburgh and Atlanta could be 2 big spots.
Atlanta would be the perfect spot for Justin Fields.
And last but not least, Kirk Cousins.
I think if the Vikings are smart, they bring him back.
They have to, right? They
I
don't have the answer in house.
Right. There's no heir apparent there. And when he's healthy, by far, Kurt's your best option.
All right, Mo. Great show today on a hump day, on a Valentine's Day. Close us out.
Valentine's Day. Hey, thank you guys so much. Appreciate all the support in the chat. Thank you for watching Chris and I live. Check out all the great content we have to offer for you on Sports Empire Network. Check out the Empire.
Hey, make sure you're back here, same time, same place tomorrow. We have lots of things in the world of sports to be discussing. That's happening tomorrow right here. Coffee and Sports. It's the morning show powered by Sports Empire Network, and we will see you tomorrow morning.
I mean, you can see right now, without LeBron, Lakers are struggling.
Let me tell you about a team I hate, all right? I know the Dallas Cowboy fan is here, so I had to make sure he knew how much I hate this team.
I'm ready.
I've often said that the people who run baseball, they try very hard to ruin it.
I'm from Brooklyn. I don't have a problem saying it to his face. Oh, I'm from Brooklyn. Hey, you guys any